For a third straight year, Aryna Sabalenka is featured in a star-studded final in Spain, this time Coco Gauff being her challenger. I'll preview this highly anticipated Coco-Lenka final and predict who I think will get their hands on the first Clay 1000 title of the season. I'll also talk about the men's final between Casper Ruud and Ruud-Draper and discuss the Challenger Tour a bit, giving an update on Naomi Osaka and her bid to pull herself out of the trenches. Hey, I'm Christian Bassnight and welcome to Christian's Court, where I cover tennis from all angles. If you have not yet already, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post my Madrid Open Women's Final recap video. First, looking at what's at stake for these two women. For Aryna Sabalenka, it's her fourth Madrid final. She is a two-time champion. For Gauff, this is her first final in the Caja Magica. Sabalenka, if she were to win this match, she would equal Petra Kvitova for the most Madrid women's titles at 3. And Sabalenka, she is already into her sixth final of the year, and she's seeking her third trophy of 2025. Also, this would be her 9th 1000 title and 20th title overall. Aryna would also extend her number one lead to 4,375 points over would-be number 2 Iga Swiatek. Now for Gauff, she's playing for the number 2 ranking. She would overtake Iga if she were to win this title. This is also, as mentioned, her first final of the season for Coco, and she is looking for her second clay title overall. Her first clay title was way back in 2021 at the Palma 250, so this is definitely going to be her biggest clay title. This will also be her 10th title overall. Even though she is the lower ranked of the two, the American Gauff has the head-to-head edge over Sabalenka 5-4, and this is going to be their second ever meeting on the clay. Their first was at 2021 Rome, the round of 16, which Coco won in straight sets, 7-5, 6-3. They played 3 times last year. All 3 of those matches were semifinals at the Australian Open, Wuhan Open, and the WTA Finals. All of them were tight. Sabalenka won the first 2 in Melbourne and in Wuhan, and Gauff won their last meeting at the finals in Riyadh. Of course, they also met in the 2023 U.S. Open Finals, which Coco took in 3 sets. Most of their matches are low-key, like, really messy, yet entertaining. They put on a show regardless. I feel like it's just difficult for them to both bring their tennis against each other, their best tennis, at the same time. And their best match probably was their Australian Open semifinal. One stat that points out to me is their finals record. Sabalenka, she's made a lot of finals, especially recently, but she's also lost a lot of finals. Even this year alone, she's fell in 3 finals matches at the Australian Open, Indian Wells, and most recently Stuttgart. Coco, meanwhile, has an impeccable 9-1 finals record, 10-1 if we want to count the United Cup. She often plays her best tennis in these championship matches, and I think that's going to be a big factor for this one. Looking at Coco's road to the final, she had to really battle in her opening round match against Diana Yastremska, won that. She was bageled in the opening set, love 6, but then she was able to come back and win it 7-5 in the third set. And then she hadn't dropped a set after that opening round match. She beat An Lee, her compatriot, Belinda Bencic. She beat her 4-2. She beat Mira Andreeva 7-5. 6-1, and then of course Iga Swiatek, she double breasted the pole. The thing that stood out to me with Coco this tournament, namely her serve, and it's been probably her best serving tournament maybe ever, low-key. And the serve has been such a big asset for her throughout this fortnight. It's really been firing on all cylinders, especially that first serve. She's really been going up and after it instead of spinning it in. Against Mira, she won 85% of her first serve points, and against Swiatek, she won 90% of her first serve points, and she hit 7 aces against Iga and only hit 1 double fault. That goes to show how well she's been serving. And I think when Coco serves well, oftentimes the rest of her game is well too. And Coco has really been using the altitude in Madrid to her advantage. She's been, using her really heavy, spinny type of forehand to get the ball up and out of opponent's strike zone and really make them uncomfortable. And instead of really beating them with pace, she's beating them with her spin, and it's just really been hell for her opponents. Coco's also been returning very smart. Instead of kind of like wailing off and doing too much on her returns when it's not there, she's being more, calculated. She's spitting it in, especially on the first serve return. She's spitting it in. And when she does attack on the second serve return, she's attacking with like good margins, good height over the net, and good like placement. She's not going too close to the lines. So overall, very smart. I feel like Coco's just been playing very much within herself and with aggressive intentions, but good with intelligence intelligent, good margins behind her shot making. Sabalenka, meanwhile, she opened against Anna Blinkova, won that 6-3, 6-4, and she dropped her lone set of the tournament thus far against her former doubles partner, Elisa Mertens. She won that 3-6, 6-2, 6-1. Then she got by American Peyton Stearns 6-2, 6-4. She beat Marta Kostuk in 2 tiebreak sets before beating another Ukrainian woman, Aryna Sabalenka, in the semifinals by a score of 6-3, 7-5. Now with Sabalenka, it's just typical Aryna like tennis from the ground. She's just been bigger and stronger than all her opponents from that front and the end. And she has also been using her variety extremely well, mixing in a lot of slices and drop shots and catching opponents off guard whenever she does get them on the defensive, being able to kind of take advantage of her better court position. Sabalenka, though, she has been pretty streaky at times in this tournament, especially in her last 2 matches. There were times where she barely dropped points in stretches, and then like she's on fire, and then other times she's very error prone and struggles to make even land first serves, and the double faults can be an issue for her as well. It's odd because she's been really clutch throughout this entire tournament. First of all, she saved 3 set points against Marta Kostuk in that quarterfinal match. 1 in the first set, 2 in the second set. Then she saved 5 out of 7 break points faced against Aryna Sabalenka, 13 out of 16 break points faced against Kostuk, and then 12 out of 13 break points faced against Stearns. And of course, she won all 3 of those matches in straight sets. That goes to show that those matches, they could have easily gone 3 if Aryna wasn't so clutch in the paint. Then again, you could argue that Sabalenka made life a bit more challenging for herself throughout the tournament, as she did fail to serve out the match against Felina and Kostuk on her first go-around. The serve, I feel like it's been okay in the matches. Again, it's kind of been up and down. It comes in waves. I feel her good serving, and then sometimes she throws in some double faults and loses her rhythm on that serve. I feel like the return has been more of Sabalenka's saving grace throughout this tournament. That's the aspect of her game I feel that's been able to get herself out of trouble. Talking about where Sabalenka has the edge in this match, I feel like Aryna will provide definitely a newer challenge for Coco. Coco hasn't necessarily faced a big ball striker like this since Jastrzębska in round 1 or in this round 2, who she struggled against immensely the most. Yes, Coco, she was just off her game, period, against Jastrzębska, but I think against Gauff in these type of conditions, the best player to beat her is a bigger hitter. The player who beat her last year was Madison Keys, a big hitter, and definitely I still think even though Coco's forehand has improved and it's been more steady, that's still the game plan to try to rush and beat her with pace on that side. I think also Sabalenka can take solace in knowing that the final will be played in more of like the nighttime conditions. First of all, Sabalenka has been playing most of her matches lately in the nighttime conditions, so that might aid her a little bit more. Coco's been playing a majority of her matches this tournament during the day, and the lone match she played during the night was against Jastrzębska, where she struggled a little bit more. And I feel like nighttime conditions make it better for Aryna because Coco's kind of spin on her forehand might not be as big of a factor. I also think Aryna will provide better or stronger resistance against Coco than, Mira or Iga did. Coco typically does not have the best reputation of being a strong closer, but she's been a good closer this tournament against Iga and Mira because those opponents kind of went away towards the end. Yes, Coco played tremendously, but they weren't able to really challenge her and apply good scoreboard pressure. And we all know when Coco is faced with scoreboard pressure, sometimes her game isn't as strong. Sabalenka, she got outplayed in that Wuhan match. She, got handed the breast that Coco was playing tremendous tennis, but Aryna was just able to hang around, apply scoreboard pressure. I think Coco was up a break, and Coco had an opportunity to go up a double break, I believe, in the second set, but Aryna was able to maintain a good distance from her, and eventually the Coco Gauff double fault but came back to bite, and Aryna was able to play herself into better form. One other thing, Sabalenka, she's kind of on a trend of making the Stuttgart final in odd years, of course losing it before winning the Madrid title. She did that in 2021, 2023, so the pattern is set to continue in 2025. Now with Gauff, and talking about the advantage for her, I think she simply enjoys playing Sabalenka. And I think, first of all, Gauff she enjoys returning Sabalenka's serve. Sabalenka's serve doesn't really do much to trouble Coco, noticing it from their previous matches, and that's going to be a big thing with her because Sabalenka, of course, we all know, once you're able to get the ball back, get the return back in play, it's game on. Especially when Coco, her being such a strong returner like she has been this tournament too, being able to get the return back in play, not only in play but with good depth too, it's going to make life harder for Sabalenka, and it's going to frustrate her even more that she's not going to be able to get as many free or easy points off that serve. Also, the pace from Sabalenka tends to not bother Coco as much, especially with how more stable and solid Gauff's forehand has been lately in the past 9 months or so. Coco too, she really knows how to frustrate Aryna with mixing in a lot of different heights and spins and paces of shot. And I think that really can frustrate the Belarusian a ton. We saw that especially at the WTA finals. And one thing about Sabalenka, she's kind of gotten a similar type of ball against, Stearns and Kostjuk, Svitolina. Gauff is just completely different. So that's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for Aryna to be able to adjust to Coco's type of spin of shot. Coco also gets just a lot of balls back in play. Yes, Svitolina is a good mover, but Coco's movement is really up there. It's just going to add another layer of frustration for Sabalenka, I feel, at some parts. And there's going to be that inevitable period where Sabalenka sprays a lot of errors, and Coco's movement and stuff is going to further press and cause pressure for Sabalenka to go for maybe more than what she needs to do. Not to mention, Coco's movement is going to be amplified with it being on clay. Also, I think that, of course, I mentioned too, the Madrid conditions suit Gauff's game well. I won't spend too much time harping on this point because I already talked about it plenty of time, but I think that even though it is still nighttime, I mentioned that the nighttime will be a little bit of more of an edge for Aryna. It's still going to be, a considerable factor for Gauff's favor. And then finally, I think Coco has just been in better form than Sabalenka. I mentioned how Sabalenka has been streaky throughout the tournament, and ever since the Yastremska match, Coco has just been aging like fine wine and has been getting better match by match by match. And if the trend continues, this final against Sabalenka will be her best match. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case because, as I mentioned, Coco rarely loses in final. Now, talking about the final factors, the big difference makers I feel for this match, I think it's going to be important for Gauff's forehand to be on, and her just being able to withstand the barrage and pace from Sabalenka on that side. I know Sabalenka is probably going to look for, forehand-to-forehand exchanges, so Coco needs to be solid on that wing. I also feel like Coco can use her forehand as an offensive weapon too and draw errors from Aryna. And one thing I've noticed when watching Sabalenka's matches is that the forehand hasn't been as reliable for her compared to the backhand. And when Sabalenka, if you get her on the move on that forehand side, she's definitely a little bit more vulnerable than when she's more stationary. And then too, I mentioned Coco serve. She just needs to be consistent with it and continue to go up and after it. She needs to have a somewhat solid first serve in percentage as well. Then with Sabalenka, her serve is important as well. I do think she needs to serve better than she has this entire tournament because Coco is going to be by far the best returner that she has faced thus far, and she just needs definitely a higher first serve percentage. Also, I think the serve was a big issue for her, and that Ostapenko-Stuttgart final, her first serve percentage was way too low, and Ostapenko was eating her alive, and the same could be said about their last meeting, Coco and Aryna's last meeting at the WTA finals. Aryna's serve really just went away for her, to be honest. And then, too, I think on the flip side, Sabalenka's return needs to be on. I feel like she needs to look to make Coco pay for her any short serve or second serves and just really get Gauff in her head a little bit more. Iga wasn't able to adequately attack Gauff's second serve. Maybe that was due to the altitude as well, and then Iga just simply being really bad during that match. If Sabalenka can adequately do that, maybe we'll see a few more double faults come into play. I don't know. Now, given my prediction, I will be having Coco take this one in 3 sets. I just think that she's been in better form, and Sabalenka, she has gotten away with kind of being up and down throughout this tournament, but I don't think that'll cut it against Coco. Gauff, she also, as I mentioned too, she typically rises to the occasions of finals. Sabalenka is still so at this stage. When Coco is playing well, as she has said herself, and as she has been in the previous rounds, she's just so hard to beat. And I feel like it will take a peak level Sabalenka for that to happen. And I don't know if I see that happening on Saturday. She was able to raise that level another notch higher last year in the final against Iga and still wasn't able to win. So it'll be a harder ask against Coco because Coco just takes her out of her element so much. I think that Sabalenka will at least get a set because, of course, she is the world number one. And the reason why she's number one, I feel, is because she, not only is she just better, but she fights so hard. And I feel like she will find a way eventually to make some inroads in the Gauff game because she does not want to lose back-to-back Madrid finals. She definitely doesn't want to do that. But still, I think it's going to be Coco's time to lift another big title, so I'm going to be having her be our women's champion in Madrid. Now, briefly talking about the men's action, because I know I've been neglecting that deep this tournament. The men's final for Sunday is set, of course, and it will be Jack Draper who takes on Norwegian Casper Ruud. Casper punched his ticket first into the championship with a very odd 6-4, 7-5 win over Francisco Cerundolo. A lot happened in this match. Ruud, he needed medical attention early on due to a rib issue during his warm-up, and he said that he was really close to pulling the plug. He wasn't sure if he could continue. Clearly, the treatment helped as he won the match in straight sets, but he had no business winning this match, let alone in straight sets, I feel. Cerundolo, he led by a break in the opening set, 3-2, and then he twice held a break lead in the second set. Obviously lost both sets. And Fran, he feel like he definitely has a choking issue because he went 3 for 18 on break points, which is just, it's horrible. And I feel like he was the better player for much of this match, but whenever it came time to play an important point, his game departed him. I do got to give credit to Casper, though, for just being the more clutch player, but it's just no denying he got let off the hook, and I think he's going to have to play better if he wants to win his first Masters 1000 title. His finals opponent, Jack Draper, has looked in perilous form all tournament, being honest. Like Ruud, he hasn't yet dropped a set. This tournament, he beat Tommy Paul 2-2 in the fourth round, Matteo Arnaldi 0-4 in the quarterfinals, then another Italian, Lorenzo Musetti, 3-6 in the semifinals. Jack also secured his top 5 debut come Monday, and he actually makes history as the second lefty this century behind Nadal to crack top 5, which is crazy. Draper hadn't had a lot of success on the clay prior to this tournament for real, but he has shown this week that his game actually goes well with the surface. Of course, the Madrid conditions further favor his, big ground game as the ball goes through the court faster and he's better able to get on the attack. But Draper's just also an incredible athlete and has showcased his strong defensive capabilities. It's just really been quite something to witness him going from defense to offense like he has been this entire tournament. Definitely, I think Draper's going to be the favorite for this final. He already has a 1,000 under his belt, so the whole nerves aspect won't be as big for him as it might be for Casper. Ruud, this would be his biggest title of his career. He's 0-6 in big finals, and that includes not only 1,000s, but 2 slam finals, I believe, and also he lost in the finals of the ATP finals. Not to mention, I just think that Draper has been in better form lately, and this is going to be their first career meeting, though, so perhaps something about Casper's game might trouble Jack, but I just don't see it, and I have Draper winning this with the scoreline of 6-4, 7-5. Last time I talked about Naomi Osaka, it was the Madrid first round loss that she suffered to Lucia Bronzetti, and I criticized her for not playing many tournaments before Madrid, and I said that she should play maybe a 125 before she played Rome, and she did just that, and currently she's in the semifinals of the Saint-Malo 125 tournament in France. Yeah, Naomi has been playing mainly Kaya's, ranked outside the top 100 this tournament, but she's gotten some good competition, I feel, and her best win was against Frenchwoman Diane Parry in the round of 16. Parry is a solid player, especially on the clay. She has a pretty tricky game and has a lot of variety. She's also a former top 50 player, and I believe she upset Krejcikova at the French Open in 2021 too. She had Osaka on the ropes as well. She led 2-4 in the third set in that match, and Naomi could have easily thrown in the towel, but she dug her heels in deep and won the final 4 games, so props to her for that. Her most recent match was the quarterfinal against another French woman, Elsa Jacquemot. She won that 6-3, 6-4, and she plays yet another French woman, Leolio Jean-Jean, in the semifinals, and the winner of that one faces the winner of Victoria Goyevic and Kaya Uvan. Naomi really should win this tournament. I wonder if she low-key wants to tank because maybe she doesn't want her first title as a mom to be a 125, but I think she'll go for it. Why not? But yeah, congratulations to Naomi for going this far, and hopefully she takes the title because, again, she should. Now, while on the topic of challengers, I want to talk about the 175 challenger in Estoril, Portugal. The Italian qualifier, Andrea Pellegrino, has shaken things up for sure. He stunned the top seed and world number 19, Felix Auger-Aliassime, 7-5, 6-4 in the second round. Definitely this was a a poor result from Felix's part, and it's not been a good stretch for the Canadian. He has lost his last 5 matches, and he has not really been the same since making the Dubai finals earlier this year. And at that time, he was the tour wins leader. He was the first, I believe, to get to 15 wins, and now he's on the verge of falling outside the top 30 as he failed to defend his Madrid finals points. But anyways, props to Pellegrino for a good run. He's in the semifinals, of course, and he's joined by second seed Alex Mikkelsen, fifth seed Miomir Kecmanovic, and Aussie Alexander Vukic. That's all I have for this one. Let me know who you think will win between Gauff and Sabalenka, and feel free to drop your own predictions. And also, do you agree with me that Coco and Jack will be our Madrid Open champions? Of course, again, make sure you subscribe and click that notification bell so you're notified whenever I post my post-match analysis and thoughts for these finals. Thank you all so much for watching and for your support, and I'll see you all next time here on Christian's Court.